Three best friends went for a drive, only two came back. One was found wandering in a daze, claiming she remembered nothing. The other was trapped in the wreckage, whispering a single terrifying word, again. The police thought it was a tragic incident. The families thought it was a moment of madness. But what if it was neither? What if the real story was a web of secret intimacies? A friendship so obsessive it couldn't be broken, and a meticulously planned act, practiced in the dead of night, to permanently remove a distraction. This isn't just a story about a terrible night. It's about the dark, twisting pact that led to it. If you are ready to uncover the truth, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now, because this is a story you will not be able to forget. The sound arrived first, a thin electronic scream slicing through the quiet of the late hour. It grew, separating into a chorus of approaching sirens. Then came the other sounds. The hiss of released steam, the sharp crackle of a radio dispatcher's voice breaking into static, and a low, human sound of pain that was quickly silenced. Detective Miles Corbin shut off his own engine. He did not need the flashing lights. The entire area was already pulsed with strobes of red and blue. He stepped out, his shoes crunching on unseen debris. The air was thick and wrong, poisoned with the metallic tang of fluids and the acrid smell of burnt rubber. He approached the nearest figure in a firefighter's turnout coat. "What do we have?" Corbin's voice was low, cutting through the managed chaos. "Single vehicle," the firefighter said, not turning. He was focused on something just beyond Corbin's line of sight. "3 occupants, all teenagers. We have one. Gone," pronounced at the scene. "One is still inside the vehicle. The third one." She was wandering. Wandering where? Just here. On the pavement. 10 yards from the point of impact. The firefighter pointed with his chin toward a waiting ambulance. "The EMTs have her." Corbin nodded, moving past the firefighter and toward the ambulance. He saw her. A young woman, draped in a heavy shock blanket, sitting on the steel bumper. Her hair was matted, but her face was strangely clear, untouched. She was staring at her own hands, which were clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. This was Chloe. He approached slowly, keeping his presence calm. "Ma'am, my name is Detective Corbin. I need to ask you a few questions." Chloe's head lifted, a slow, mechanical movement. Her eyes were wide but vacant, as if she were looking through him. I don't know," she whispered. Her voice was a flat monotone, a stark contrast to the wail of the sirens. "You don't know what?" Corbin asked softly. "Where?" "I don't know." "What's your name?" A long pause. "Chloe, I think." "Yes." "Chloe, can you tell me what happened tonight? Can you tell me who was driving?" She looked back down at her hands. The blankness in her expression tightened into something like confusion. "It was dark," she said, her voice barely audible. "We were singing. And then it was just loud. I can't remember." Had amnesia felt too clean, too precise? Corbin had seen shock before. This was something else. This was a void. "Who else was with you?" "My friends," she said, the word holding no emotion. "Maya and Isabella." "Where are they?" Chloe's gaze drifted past him, toward the center of the activity, but there was no recognition. "I don't know," she repeated. "I don't remember." A paramedic approached. "Detective, we need to transport her. She's stable, but she's in deep shock." "Understood," Corbin said, handing the paramedic his card. "Have an officer ride with you. I need a statement from her as soon as she's cleared." He turned away from the unsettling calm of the survivor and walked toward the core of the incident. The sounds of metal being cut and strained were loud here. Rescuers were concentrated on the passenger side. He heard that low, pained sound again, this time resolving into a series of fractured moans. "She's pinned," an EMT shouted over the noise. "Her legs. We're trying to get her stable." "Is she conscious?" Corbin called out. The EMT, his face slick with sweat, leaned back for a second. "Technically, she's not all there," keeps repeating something. Corbin moved as close as he was allowed, stopping at the edge of the working circle. "My name is Detective Corbin," he projected his voice. "We're getting you out. Can you tell me what happened? Who was driving?" The moaning stopped, replaced by a desperate, gasping inhalation. A voice, thin and fractured, rose from inside. It was a single, garbled word, spoken over and over with a frantic rhythm. He couldn't make it out. It was just sound, desperate and meaningless. He stepped back to let the team work. A uniformed officer, younger than Corbin, was standing nearby, holding a notepad. "The third occupant, officer?" Corbin asked. The officer swallowed, his gaze fixed on a still, covered shape on the ground several feet away. "Isabella. That's what the ID says. The coroner's assistant is waiting." There was nothing anyone could do. "Understood," Corbin said. He looked at the younger officer. "You were first on scene. Give me your assessment." The officer looked grateful to have a procedural task. "It's strange, Detective." "Strange how?" "The marks," the officer said, pointing with his penlight, though Corbin was not focused on the ground. "They're not right. They're not breaking marks. Not from a swerve to avoid something. They're straight. Almost perfectly straight. As if someone just kept going. Maybe even faster." Corbin processed this new critical piece of information. Not an accident, not a loss of control. A straight line. The sound of the cutting tool whined and then stopped. A moment later, the rescue team was moving back, carefully lifting a backboard. The second survivor, Maya, was strapped to it. Her face was a mask of agony and terror. As they rushed her toward the second ambulance, her head thrashed. The first responder, who had been closest to her, the one who had been inside the vehicle, walked over to Corbin, pulling off his heavy gloves. "That girl we just extricated," the responder said, his voice heavy with fatigue. "The one who was pinned." "Maya?" Corbin supplied. "Did she say anything coherent?" "She was repeating that word. The whole time. Took me a minute to understand it through the pain." "What was it?" Corbin asked. The responder met his eyes, his expression deeply unsettled. She kept saying, "Again." Corbin stood still for a long moment, the chaos swirling around him. He looked at the taillights of the first ambulance carrying Chloe, the girl with no memory. Then he looked at the second ambulance as its doors slammed shut on Maya, the girl who had just given the night its first terrifying word. The case file in his mind had just opened, and its first page was already stained with an impossible question. The sterile, unchanging light of the hospital was an assault after the pre-dawn darkness. Detective Miles Corbin had been running on bitter coffee for 3 hours, and the case was already hardening into something misshapen and complex. He had 2 survivors, 2 interviews. He needed a crack in the narrative, a single verifiable fact to build upon. He found Chloe's room first. A private room, with a uniformed officer standing almost apologetically outside the door. Corbin flashed his badge, and the officer simply nodded, stepping aside. Inside, Chloe was not alone. A man and a woman, impeccably dressed even at this hour, stood like sentinels on either side of her bed. They turned in unison as Corbin entered, their expressions shifting from concern to sharp-edged appraisal. "Detective Corbin," he introduced himself, his voice intentionally neutral. "I'm here to speak with Chloe. I am Alan Harris. This is my wife, Martha," the man said. His voice was firm, the kind of voice used to giving orders. "Our daughter is in shock. The doctors have been very clear. She is not to be distressed. I understand she has no memory of the event," Corbin said, his gaze shifting to the girl in the bed. Chloe looked small, pale, and still. She was identical to the vacant girl on the ambulance bumper. "Complete amnesia," Martha Harris interjected, her voice tight. "She remembers having dinner with her friends, and then she remembers waking up in the ambulance. Nothing in between. Nothing. It was a terrible, tragic occurrence." She could not bring herself to use the word incident. "Chloe," Corbin said, speaking directly to the girl. Her eyes met his. There was still nothing behind them. "I know this is difficult. I need you to think hard. Do you remember getting into the car? Do you remember who had the keys?" Chloe's expression flickered. She looked at her mother, then at her father. I've tried," she whispered. "It's just blank. It's a big, black hole. I can't. I'm sorry." She looked down at her hands, the same pose from the roadside. "She's been through an unimaginable trauma, Detective," Alan Harris said, stepping slightly forward, a polite but unmistakable barrier. "We've been told Isabella." We've been told she didn't make it. Chloe doesn't even know that yet. We're waiting for the doctors to advise us. You are questioning a victim. Corbin held the man's gaze. A young woman is gone, sir. Another is in serious condition. I am trying to determine how this happened. Chloe is the only one who walked away. I need to know why. She was lucky, Martha snapped, her composure cracking. She was thrown clear. That is not a crime. This interview is over. You can speak with our lawyer. Corbin knew a stone wall when he saw one. He had learned nothing except that Chloe's story was firm, polished, and protected. He nodded slowly, placing his card on the bedside table. As soon as she remembers anything at all, you call me. He left the room, the silence from within feeling heavier than the noise of the hallway. Maya's room was in a different wing, a place with more beeping monitors and a greater sense of urgency. Her parents were present, but they were not sentinels. They were huddled in plastic chairs, looking stunned and small. Maya herself was almost invisible beneath a framework of medical equipment and white bandages. One leg was elevated in a cast. Her face was bruised, her eyes swollen shut. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, Corbin said from the doorway. The woman, Maya's mother, stood up, her hands twisting a piece of tissue. Yes. Detective, do you know what happened? They won't tell us anything. That's what I'm here to find out, Corbin said, stepping inside. He looked at the injured girl. Is she awake? On and off, the father said, his voice rough. They've given her medication for the pain. As if summoned by their voices, Maya's eyes flickered and opened. They were unfocused for a moment, then settled on Corbin. A jolt went through her. It was not recognition. It was pure, unadulterated terror. She tried to push herself up, a movement that was immediately stopped by her injuries, and a sharp, pained gasp escaped her. It's all right, Corbin said, raising his hands, palms out. My name is Detective Corbin. You're safe. We just need to talk. No, please. Maya whispered, her eyes wide, darting to the door and back. Maya, honey, it's okay, her mother said, rushing to the bedside, trying to smooth her hair. He's here to help. Just tell him what happened. This seemed to panic Maya more. I can't, she stammered, her breathing becoming shallow and fast. The monitor beside her bed began to beep in a faster, more insistent rhythm. Corbin had to be quick. Maya, I know you're scared. I just have one question. Who was driving the car? The question struck her like a physical blow. The breath she had been fighting for was stolen. She stared at Corbin, her swollen eyes impossibly wide. Her lips parted. She was trying to form a word. Was it Chloe? Corbin pressed, gently but firmly. Maya finally choked out. It wasn't. It wasn't Chloe. It wasn't supposed to happen. She sobbed, the words dissolving. Not like that. It wasn't supposed to be like that. What wasn't supposed to be like that? Corbin asked, leaning closer. What was supposed to happen, Maya? But she was gone, lost in a wave of panic. Her body tensed, and she cried out in genuine pain. A nurse bustled into the room, her expression grim. Detective, I am going to have to ask you to leave. Now. Her blood pressure is critical. She needs to be stabilized. Corbin stepped back, defeated. She's traumatized, Maya's father said, his voice accusing. You're making it worse. Corbin nodded curtly and backed out of the room. He had failed. 2 survivors, and he was no closer to the truth. He was halfway down the hall when Maya's mother caught up to him. Detective, she said, her voice a low, frantic whisper. Corbin stopped. Mrs. Evans. What she said. Not like that. It doesn't make any sense. But, the officer who rode with her. He told me something else, she said, when they were pulling her from the car. Corbin's focus sharpened. She said, again. Mrs. Evans flinched, her eyes filling with tears. Yes, but, more, just after. As they were lifting her, she grabbed the officer. She was fighting him even with her injuries. She was frantic. What did she say, Mrs. Evans? The woman's voice broke. She said, don't let her. She'll do it again. She'll find me. Don't let her. A cold, heavy certainty settled in Corbin's gut. Did she say a name, Mrs. Evans? Did she say who? No, the mother whispered, her body trembling. She just said she, and then she lost consciousness. Detective. Who is she talking about? What is she so afraid of? Corbin looked back down the hall, toward the private room holding the calm, amnesiac girl who had walked away without a scratch. He had his answer. A death notification is a formal cruelty. Detective Miles Corbin had delivered hundreds of them. This, however, was different. This was the follow-up. This was the search for a motive. An intrusion into a grief that was still less than a day old. Isabella's parents met him at the door. Their eyes were red and swollen, their bodies moving with the slow, heavy motions of people wading through an unseen weight. They had already been told the terrible official visit was over. Corbin was the second wave. Mr. and Mrs. Roma, he began, his voice lowered. My condolences. I am Detective Corbin. I know this is an impossible time, but I need to understand what happened to your daughter. Understand? Mr. Roma's voice was hollow. A car. It went off the road. What is there to understand? We're still processing the how, sir, Corbin said, choosing his words with care. My job is to find the why. Can we talk? They led him to a room. He ignored his surroundings, focusing only on the two individuals. Mrs. Roma clutched a framed photograph. She was good, Mrs. Roma whispered, her thumb tracing the glass. She was our light, always. She never, not once, gave us a day of trouble. She was the one who held everyone together. Tell me about her friends, Corbin said, Chloe and Maya. Mr. Roma's expression, which had been slack with grief, tightened. Them. Yes. The trio. They've been inseparable for, 5 years, Maria? Since middle school. What was that friendship like? Corbin asked. It was. A lot, Mrs. Roma said. She looked up, her eyes struggling to focus. Chloe. Chloe is a very strong personality, very bright, very magnetic. And Maya, she's so quiet, she just followed. But our Isabella. She was the anchor, the peacemaker. When Chloe and Maya would argue, which was often, Isabella was the one who fixed it. She was the bridge. Did she ever seem afraid of them? Corbin asked. Specifically, of Chloe. The question startled them. Afraid, Mr. Roma said, scoffing. No. Why would she be afraid? Annoyed, sometimes. Chloe could be demanding, possessive, even, but not dangerous. They were just teenage girls. Did Isabella seem different lately? Corbin pressed. In the last few weeks. Was she stressed? Anxious? Was she having trouble with anyone? Mrs. Roma's breath hitched. She looked at her husband, a silent communication passing between them. Yes, she said, her voice dropping. She was. We thought it was school, college applications. She wasn't sleeping. She was losing weight. We asked her, of course, a dozen times. She just smiled and said she was fine, just tired. When was the last time you saw her? Yesterday afternoon, Mr. Roma said. Before she left, she said they were going for a drive. Chloe wanted to talk. Isabella seemed nervous about it. Nervous how? Just quiet, he said, shaking his head. She almost didn't go. She said she was tired. But Chloe called again and again. Insistent, Isabella finally grabbed her jacket and left. She said, I just have to get this over with. We didn't think anything of it. We just told her to be home by 10. Insistent, nervous. Get this over with. The words clicked into place, reinforcing the narrative of pressure that was beginning to form. Corbin left the house with the photograph of a smiling, perfect victim seared into his mind. The next stop was the school. He needed an objective third party. The guidance counselor at Westview High was a woman named Miss Alvarez. She was organized, professional, and her eyes held a practiced neutrality that Corbin recognized. Yes, I know all 3 girls, she said, her hands folded on her desk. It's a horrific tragedy. We're preparing a statement for the students. I'm not here for a statement, Miss Alvarez. I'm here for a behavioral baseline. Tell me about the dynamic. She sighed, her professionalism giving way to a hint of weariness. Intense, that's the word I would use. All-consuming. It wasn't 3 individual girls, it was a single unit. And frankly, it was an unhealthy one. Chloe was the gravity. Everything orbited her. Maya orbited her out of adoration, I suppose. Isabella orbited her out of duty. out of a sense of responsibility. You sound like you've spoken to them about this. I spoke with Isabella, just last week. Her parents didn't call me, her calculus teacher did, said she was failing, which is unheard of for her, she's a perfect student. Corbin leaned forward. This was it. What did she say? She sat right there, Miss Alvarez said, gesturing to the empty chair. She was visibly distressed. I asked her if it was academic pressure. She said no. I asked if it was trouble at home. She said no. Then she said, I'm stuck in the middle, and I don't know how to get out without someone getting hurt. Did she say who she was stuck between? She didn't have to, the counselor said. It was always them, but there was something new, a new factor. What factor? Miss Alvarez looked hesitant, as if debating a breach of confidence. Corbin waited. A few days before our meeting, she said, lowering her voice, I saw her in the hallway. She was not with Chloe or Maya, she was with a young man. Liam. He is Chloe's long-term boyfriend. Corbin felt the air in the room shift. What about them? They were not just talking, detective, they were arguing, or... No, that's not right. He was arguing, he was angry. And Isabella, she was crying. Not just crying, she was devastated. I almost stepped in, but they saw me and separated. When I asked her about it in our session, she shut down completely. She just said, he doesn't understand. And if Chloe finds out what? Corbin asked. She wouldn't say, Miss Alvarez replied. She just shook her head and said, it would destroy everything. Detective Miles Corbin was a man who trusted tangible evidence over the fractured memories of traumatized witnesses. He was back in his own territory now, a place of processed reports and digital trails. First, the vehicle. The news was not good. His forensics lead, a man named Garber, delivered the update with a sigh. The event data recorder is a loss, Miles, Garber said, his voice flat over the phone. The impact was catastrophic. The unit itself is cracked straight through. We got the last 5 seconds of wheel speed, and the officer on scene was right. It was full, unadulterated acceleration. No braking, no steering correction, just a straight line getting faster. So the recorder is useless? Corbin asked, his frustration mounting. Worse than useless, Garber replied. It's a confirmation of what happened, but it's given us nothing on who was responsible. The seat sensors, the occupant data, all of that is corrupted. We have no driver identification from the car itself. Whoever was in that seat, they intended to do it. The car just did what it was told. A dead end. Corbin hung up, staring at the blank incident board. He had confirmation of a deliberate act, but the proof of the actor was missing. He turned his attention to the second pillar of any modern investigation, the phones. 3 devices, 3 lives. Chloe's phone was the first. It had been in her pocket, untouched, just like its owner. It was unlocked. Corbin had spent an hour scrolling through it. It was clean, spotless. Her message threads with Maya and Isabella were full of mundane chatter. Plans for movies, comments on classes, shared jokes. There was nothing. Her conversations with her boyfriend, Liam, were equally sterile. Hey, love you, see you later. It felt curated, like a performance of a normal teenage life. The lack of any anger, any conflict, was more suspicious than a string of threats. Maya's phone was a different problem. It was locked with a complex passcode, and Maya herself remained in a heavily sedated, non-communicative state. It was a digital lockbox he could not, for the moment, open. That left Isabella's phone. It had been recovered from the floor of the vehicle, its screen shattered. It was the long shot, the device that had endured the same forces as its owner. He was in the forensics lab, watching a young technician named Kenji work with the device's fragmented memory. Kenji was meticulous, his focus absolute. The SIM card was destroyed. Kenji said without looking up from his monitor. And the primary memory partition was formatted by the impact. Most of the recent call logs, the active message threads, they're just noise now. Corbin felt the case slipping. So it's another dead end. Not exactly, Kenji said. He typed a rapid string of commands. Active data is one thing, but deleted data, hidden data, that's different. People think delete means gone. It doesn't. It just means unmarked. I've been running a deep recovery script on the unallocated space. He stopped typing, and I found something. A hidden folder. It was manually created and then deleted, but not overwritten. Someone, presumably the owner, was taking screenshots. A lot of them. And then trying to hide the evidence of them. Corbin moved closer. Screenshots of what? Conversations, Kenji said. He clicked, and an image file, partially corrupted but legible, bloomed on the screen. It was a message thread. The colors were familiar from a popular encrypted messaging app. Corbin began to read. The words were not mundane. They were intimate. They were adult. They spoke of stolen moments, of risk, of a connection that was both deep and forbidden. I can't stop thinking about you. You know we can't. She would be destroyed. I don't care about her. I care about you. Only you. Who is she talking to? Corbin asked, his voice low. The name at the top of the thread is L, Kenji said, but the user's full name is cached in the file's metadata. He brought up another window, a string of recovered data. The name was not LL, it was Liam. Corbin's mind flashed back to the guidance counselor's office. I saw her arguing with Liam, Chloe's boyfriend. She was devastated. The messages continued, each one a betrayal, each one a motive. She can't find out. You have to promise me. I promise. But I need to see you. Tonight. Before you go with them. My God, Corbin whispered. He was no longer looking at a victim. He was looking at one half of a secret that had, in all likelihood, been the payload in a rolling weapon. There's more, Detective, Kenji said, his voice grim. Look at the timestamps. This last one. The final screenshot. She knows. I think she knows. She's picking me up. She said we need to talk. I'm scared. The timestamp was 3 minutes before the first emergency call. Liam was not brought to the station. Detective Miles Corbin met him at his home, a calculated decision to observe him in his own territory. When Liam opened the door, he looked exactly as Corbin expected. His eyes were red-rimmed, his hair was unkempt, and he was still wearing the clothes from the day before. He looked like a young man shattered by tragedy. Detective. Is it about Chloe? Liam asked immediately, his voice hoarse. Her parents, they won't let me see her. They won't even take my calls. Is she okay? They just said she's stable. But what does that mean? His performance was note perfect. His entire focus was on his girlfriend, the survivor. Isabella, it seemed, was an afterthought. Chloe is physically unharmed, Corbin said, his voice flat. May I come in? I'm not here about Chloe. I'm here about Isabella. The name hung in the air. Liam's expression shifted, the frantic worry replaced by a more formal, practiced sadness. Oh, right. Of course. It's unbelievable. I still can't process it. She was just a really good person. Corbin stepped inside, his gaze analytical. You knew her well. We all did, Liam said, gesturing vaguely. She was always there, you know. Chloe's best friend. Maya's best friend. She was just part of the group. I spoke with the guidance counselor at your school, Corbin said, letting the statement land without accusation. She mentioned seeing you and Isabella in the hallway last week. She said it looked intense. She said you were arguing, and Isabella was crying. Liam's reaction was instantaneous. A flush rose from his neck. What? No, she's wrong. We weren't arguing. We were just talking. It was about school. College. She was stressed out. He was talking too fast, his hands gesturing, then quickly stopping. Liam, Corbin said, his voice dropping slightly, I have reason to believe it was more than that. More than what? Were you and Isabella involved in a relationship? The denial was explosive. No. What are you talking about? That's insane. No. 100% no. I love Chloe. I would never. And Isabella. She would never do that. She was my friend. Chloe's friend. That's it. The denial was too loud, too fast. It was a shield, not an answer. Then why was she afraid? Corbin asked. Afraid of what? Liam shot back. Afraid of Chloe finding out. Afraid of destroying everything. Liam's face went pale. He had no answer for that. He looked away, his jaw working. I don't know what you're talking about, he finally mumbled. She was stressed. That's all. Corbin let the silence stretch. He observed the young man who was so clearly, so poorly, lying to him, and that's when he saw it. On Liam's left wrist, partially hidden by the sleeve of his shirt, was a small, delicate bracelet. It was silver, with a single, tiny charm. It was not the kind of jewelry a teenage boy wore. It was feminine. Corbin filed the observation away. It was not the time to ask about it. Not yet. Where were you, Corbin asked, changing tactics, 2 nights ago, between 11 o'clock and 1 in the morning? Liam seemed relieved by the procedural question. I was here, at home, alone. My parents were at a work dinner. I was waiting. Chloe was supposed to text me when she got home from her drive with the girls. She never did. I kept checking my phone. I must have fallen asleep on the sofa around midnight. I didn't hear anything until the police called me yesterday morning. It was a convenient alibi. Unverifiable. Did Chloe seem upset to you lately? Corbin asked. Angry at Isabella? Angry at anyone? Liam hesitated. He looked down, running a hand through his hair. Angry. No, not angry. But she was acting strange. The last week, maybe 2 weeks, she was secretive, distant. And she was doing this one weird thing. What thing? Liam met his gaze, his expression genuinely puzzled. She was letting Maya drive her car. All the time. This was new information. This was a deviation from the script. I thought Chloe was driving, Corbin said. That's what I assumed, Liam said, shaking his head. But all last week, it was Maya. I saw them. Maya driving, Chloe in the passenger seat. I even asked Chloe about it. She hates when people touch her car. She won't even let me drive it. But she just shrugged and said, Maya needs to learn. It didn't make sense. And Maya, she looked terrified, but also excited. It was just weird. The whole dynamic was weird. This was not a polite house call. Liam was in interrogation room 2, a small, sterile space designed to amplify discomfort. The shift in location had done its work. The practiced sadness he had worn at home was gone, replaced by a visible, nervous energy. He had been waiting for 20 minutes. Detective Miles Corbin entered, not with a coffee, but with a thin file. He sat opposite Liam and said nothing. He just opened the file. You said you were home alone 2 nights ago, Corbin began, his voice devoid of any warmth. You said you fell asleep on the sofa. Yeah. Yes. That's what happened, Liam said, his voice a little too high. I was just tired. Waiting for Chloe's text. Corbin looked up from the file. His gaze was steady. You lied to me, Liam. What? No, I didn't. You lied about your relationship with Isabella. You lied about why she was crying in the hallway. You lied about what you were doing that night. And I need to know why. I told you, Liam insisted, but his confidence was paper thin. We were just friends. I don't know what you're talking about. Corbin slid a single photograph across the table. It was a close-up, taken during the initial interview. A close-up of Liam's wrist, showing the small, silver bracelet. This, Corbin said simply. Where did you get it? Liam flinched, his hand instinctively going to his wrist, but he had been asked to remove all personal items. He was bare. It was a gift. From who? Liam's eyes darted to the two-way mirror, then back to Corbin. It doesn't matter. It was from Isabella, wasn't it? Liam's silence was a confession. We recovered her phone, Liam, Corbin said, his voice remaining level. Or rather, we recovered what was on her phone. The things she was trying to hide. He slid the next set of papers across the table. They were high-resolution printouts of the screenshots. The intimate messages, the declarations, the fear. Liam stared at them. His face, which had been pale, was now ashen. The words on the page were undeniable. A sound, small and strangled, came from Liam's throat. His carefully constructed reality had just been demolished. She was terrified, Corbin said, pressing the advantage. She was terrified of Chloe, and she was talking to few. You were the one she was afraid for. You were the one who knew. Now, we are going to start this conversation over. Liam put his head in his hands. His shoulders began to shake. Oh God, he whispered. I didn't know. You didn't know what? That she was scared. I didn't know she was dead, Liam choked out, looking up. His eyes were wild. Not until the next morning. I swear. I did lie. It was a mistake. It just happened. Corbin waited, letting the confession pour out. It started a few months ago, Liam said, the words tumbling out in a rush. She's a lot, you know. She's intense. She wants all of you. And Isabella. She was just easy. She listened. She was lonely. I was confused. It was just messages at first. Then, a few times, we met. It was stupid. It was so stupid. Did Chloe know? No, Liam said, adamant. Absolutely not. It would have. You saw what Isabella said. It would have destroyed her. We were so careful. You weren't careful enough, Corbin said. Isabella thought Chloe knew. She sent that text. She was scared, and 3 minutes later, she was gone. Liam's face contorted. No, you don't understand. She wasn't just scared of Chloe finding out. She was going to tell her. This was new. Tell her what? She was going to end it. With me. She said she couldn't live with the secret anymore. She texted me that afternoon. She said she was going to tell Chloe the truth on their drive. That it was her fault, not mine. That she was going to fix it. I begged her not to. I told her to wait, to let me do it. But she wouldn't listen. He had just handed Corbin a clear, immediate, and powerful motive. A jilted girlfriend, a public revelation, and a betrayal from her most trusted friend, all converging in a single high-stress moment. So your alibi, Corbin said. It was true, Liam insisted. I was home. I was waiting, I thought. I thought Chloe would call me, screaming. I was waiting for the world to end. And then, nothing. I fell asleep, waiting for a call that never came. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know what happened until the police called. Corbin stared at him, sifting the truth from the panic. The story was plausible, it fit the evidence. One more thing, Corbin said, changing the subject abruptly. You mentioned Maya. You said she was driving Chloe's car. Liam looked confused by the shift, but he nodded. Yeah, all last week. Like I said, it was weird. How weird. They went out. 4, maybe 5 times. Always at night, always on that same stretch of road, the one by the park. I asked Chloe why, and she said Maya needed to practice driving. With intensity. That's the word she used. Intensity. It made no sense. It was almost like she was training her. The fracture had not begun 2 nights ago. It had begun weeks earlier, a hairline crack in the foundation of their friendship. The trio was an entity. Chloe was its voice, Isabella its heart, and Maya its shadow. This was the accepted order. It had been this way for 5 years. Chloe's magnetism was absolute, and she wielded it with an unconscious, devastating precision. You are the only one who truly understands me, Chloe would say, her arm draped over Maya's narrow shoulders. This was her refrain, often spoken in Isabella's presence. She's loyal, she's not complicated, like other people. And Maya, who lived for this specific, focused brand of sunlight, would nod. Her devotion was pure, uncomplicated, and total. To be loyal was her entire identity. An incident, 2 weeks before the end, had solidified this. A boy from their economics class, quiet and kind, had approached Maya. He had asked her to study. His interest was obvious and gentle. Maya had stammered, a rare flush of color on her cheeks. Chloe had intervened, not with anger, but with a chilling, surgical coldness. She can't. We're busy. She's always busy with me. She had not looked at the boy, only at Maya. He's a distraction, Maya. He doesn't really see you, not like I do. We have to be careful. It's us against everyone else. The boy had retreated, confused and dismissed. Maya's flush of interest had vanished, replaced by a familiar, fierce gratitude. You're right, Chloe, she had whispered. It's just us. During this, Isabella had watched from a few feet away, her expression strained. This was her role, the peacemaker, the one who would soften Chloe's edges. She should have stepped in, made a joke, and invited the boy to study with all of them. But she said nothing. She couldn't. Isabella was carrying the secret. it was a physical burden. She had not slept properly in a month. She, the group's moral center, was now its central lie. She was involved with Liam. The betrayal was twofold. It was against Chloe, her best friend, and it was against her own nature. She was constantly checking her phone, her body tensing at every notification. The stress was eating her alive. When Chloe demanded her full attention, Isabella was distant, her reassurances hollow. The peacemaker could not fix a problem she had created. The discovery did not happen as Chloe had feared, in a blaze of confrontation. It happened silently. The three girls were together, a rare moment of quiet. Isabella, exhausted and distracted, had left her phone unlocked on a table while she went to get a drink. Maya, sitting nearby, had been watching her. She had been watching Isabella's secretive, stressed behavior for weeks. She did not see it as stress. She saw it as disloyalty. A message illuminated the screen. The name was L. Maya did not hesitate. This was not idle curiosity. This was the act of a sentry guarding a fortress. She picked up the device. Chloe was across the room, headphones on, absorbed in. That was a mistake, we can't again. She can't find out, it will destroy her. And then, the final, damning message from Liam, I don't care about Chloe, I care about you. There was no sound. Maya's breathing did not quicken. She felt no surge of anger, no sense of personal betrayal. Her world, which was built entirely around Chloe, had just been threatened by its other two pillars. She processed the information with a cold, terrifying clarity. Isabella, the saint, was a traitor. Liam, the devoted boyfriend, was a liar. They were both hurting Chloe. They were the distraction. Isabella returned, a bottle of water in her hand. Did I miss anything? Maya looked up. Her expression was perfectly unnervingly blank. She placed the phone face down on the table. No, Maya said, her voice quiet. Nothing at all. Isabella, oblivious, continued to talk about a test, but Maya was no longer listening. She was watching Isabella with a new, profound focus. She was no longer watching a friend. She was watching a target. She did not confront Isabella, and, most importantly, she did not tell Chloe. She held the secret. It was her own. It was a weapon. And she began to wonder, silently and patiently, how she was supposed to use it. Detective Miles Corbin had waited 4 days. 4 days for Maya to be physically stable, for the fog of medication to lift, and for her parents' protective panic to subside. He had secured a 20-minute window, not in the hospital, but in a quiet room at the station. Her parents had agreed, reluctantly, after he insisted she was not a suspect, but a key witness whose memory might solve the case. Maya was brought in a wheelchair. She was still pale, her face a constellation of fading bruises, but her eyes were clear, and they were terrified. She sat with her hands clasped in her lap, a mirror image of Chloe at the incident scene. Maya, Corbin began, his voice purposefully gentle. Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult. I am not here to scare you. I am here to find the truth. The story you told at the hospital. It was fragmented. You said, it wasn't supposed to happen like that. Maya nodded, her eyes fixed on the table. I was in so much pain. I don't remember much. You said you were afraid. You said, don't let her find me. A tremor ran through her. Yes. I was scared. It was horrible. Who were you scared of, Maya? Who were you telling the medics not to let find you? I don't know, she whispered, the familiar refrain. I was just scared of everything. The dark. The noise. Corbin let the lie sit in the air. It was a weak, rehearsed answer. He decided to pivot. He would not use the evidence she expected. Let's talk about the car, he said, his tone shifting from therapeutic to factual. My forensics team has analyzed the vehicle. The officer on the scene was correct. There were no brake marks. The car did not swerve. It accelerated. In a perfectly straight line for the last 5 seconds, Maya's knuckles went white. She said nothing. It was not an accident, Maya. It was a deliberate act. Someone's foot was on the accelerator, pushing it to the floor. Now, you were in that car. You need to tell me who was driving. I can't, she stammered. It's a blur, is it? Corbin countered. Or are you just afraid to say, let's talk about the week before? Liam, Chloe's boyfriend, he told us something interesting. He said he saw you driving Chloe's car several times last week. He said you were practicing. On that same road, this hit her. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with genuine shock. She had not anticipated this. She had not known Liam had observed her training. Her mind was visibly racing, trying to recalibrate. He said Chloe was training you, Corbin pressed, leaning forward, teaching you to drive with intensity. Why, Maya? Why were you practicing on that specific road? At night, in the car that would be used as a weapon, Maya was trapped. The evidence was now pointing directly at her as the driver, the one with practice, the one with intent. Her fear of Chloe was suddenly eclipsed by a more immediate fear. The fear of being implicated herself. Her entire purpose, to protect Chloe, was about to fail spectacularly. She had to make a choice. The lie she had been holding, the simple "I don't remember," was no longer viable. She needed a new one. A better one. One that used the new facts. Her breathing hitched, a tear, real and hot, spilled onto her cheek. I was lying, she choked out. I was trying to protect her. Corbin waited. Protect who? Chloe, Maya whispered, as if the name pained her. I remember now. I was just so scared. I tried to block it out. What do you remember, Maya? She was driving, Maya said, the words gaining strength as the new narrative formed in her mind. She was driving. I was in the passenger seat. Isabella was in the back. This aligned with the known injuries. Corbin nodded. Go on. Chloe was quiet. Angry. She'd been angry all day. She kept looking at her phone. We were just driving. And then Isabella's phone lit up. It was a message. From who? From Liam, Maya said, her voice full of a new, convincing righteousness. I saw it. Chloe saw it too. She just stopped talking. She grabbed Isabella's phone. She started reading. She was reading their messages, all of them. About them. Together. Maya was a brilliant improviser. She was using the very information she had discovered weeks ago, but she was placing it in Chloe's hands, in that exact moment. She was weaponizing the truth she had been holding. And what happened then? Corbin asked, his voice level. Isabella was begging her to stop, Maya cried, her performance becoming seamless with real, remembered terror. She was saying, Chloe, please, I can explain. And Chloe, she just looked up. Her eyes, they were empty, she said. You can't. You're a traitor. And then she looked at me. And she smiled. It was awful. She said, I'll end this, for all of us. It's the only way to make it clean. Maya was sobbing, her body shaking, and then, she whispered, her eyes meeting Corbin's, full of manufactured, damning clarity, she floored it. She floored the accelerator. I tried to grab the wheel. I screamed. But she just held it. Straight. She held it straight. The story was perfect. It explained the acceleration. It provided the motive, a crime of sudden, passionate rage. It corroborated Isabella's final, fearful text. It explained Maya's injuries as a passenger. And it explained her initial fear. She was terrified of Chloe, the woman who had tried to end all of them and had almost succeeded. It was a brilliant, devastating lie. And Corbin, for the moment, had no choice but to believe it. Maya's testimony was a perfect key, fitting every lock Detective Miles Corbin had encountered. It was detailed, it was emotional, and it was damning. It provided the motive, the method, and the actor. Based on the strength of this eyewitness statement, combined with the forensic evidence of acceleration and Isabella's final, fearful text, Corbin had no choice. The arrest of Chloe Harris was quiet and procedural. Corbin found her not at the hospital. Her parents had insisted on bringing her home, but in her pristine bedroom. When he informed her that she was being arrested for the unlawful taking of Isabella's life, her reaction was not what he expected. It was not the confusion of an amnesiac. It was not the sobbing collapse of someone caught in a lie. It was rage. A cold, sharp, and focused rage. What? Chloe said, her voice dangerously low. I am required to inform you. Maya, Chloe interrupted, the name a venomous hiss. She said this. She said, I did it. You need to come with us, Chloe, Corbin said, his senses on high alert. She's lying. Chloe snapped, her eyes flashing. That? Little. Why is she lying? What did she tell you? Her amnesia was gone, replaced by a fury that was not directed at the accusation, but at the accuser. As she was led from her home, her parents shouting in protest, Chloe's eyes locked on Corbin. She is lying to you, she said, her voice a steel blade. You find out why. That one sentence, that specific, targeted anger, undid Corbin's certainty. A girl guilty of a crime of passion would be defiant. A girl wrongly accused would be hysterical. A girl with amnesia would be lost. Chloe was none of these. She was betrayed. Corbin was back at his desk an hour later, the arrest report filed, but his mind unsettled. He had a perfect witness and a perfect suspect. It was too perfect. He had put Maya's phone on the back burner, assuming it was a secondary piece. Now, it was the only piece that mattered. He had secured the warrant. He brought the locked device to Kenji, the technician. I need in, Corbin said, now. It took Kenji less than an hour. She's not very creative with her security, Kenji said. The passcode was Chloe's birthday. 6 digits. What's on it? Corbin asked. Not much at first. It's almost as clean as Chloe's. Same mundane texts, same boring photos. But there's something else. A secondary application. A vault. And this one was harder to open. Corbin waited. It's a social media account, Kenji said, turning his monitor. A private one. No followers, no one she follows. It's a diary. A shrine. Corbin stared at the screen. It was not a feed of friends or parties. It was a gallery of hundreds of photographs. All of Chloe. Candid pictures of Chloe in class, her head bent over a book. Pictures of Chloe from a distance, walking across the school grounds. Pictures of Chloe at lunch, laughing, clearly unaware she was being photographed. It was the work of a stalker, an obsessive. And then there were the captions. They were not captions. They were declarations. She protects me. No one else matters. The way she looked at me today. She knows I'm the only one who is truly loyal. Isabella is a distraction. Liam is a distraction. They don't deserve her. They get in the way. Corbin felt a cold chill. He scrolled to the final entry, posted the morning of the incident. It was a picture of Chloe's car, the one Maya had been practicing in. The caption was simple. Corbin had been played. Maya's testimony was not the emotional confession of a victim. It was the calculated, brilliant performance of an architect. He had 2 narratives running in parallel. The first, from Maya, Chloe, in a fit of rage, discovers the affair and ends Isabella's life. The second, from Maya's secret phone, a long, simmering, obsessive plan to fix everything and remove the distractions. He needed the tiebreaker. He went back to the one piece of evidence that didn't fit Maya's new story, the practice runs. Liam had said he saw them. That was not enough. Corbin needed definitive, third-party proof. He pulled the GPS data from Chloe's and Maya's phones for the entire previous week. He cross-referenced their locations. Just as Liam had said, 4 separate trips, all at night, all to the same isolated stretch of road where the incident occurred. But who was driving? The road was rural, but it was fed by a state route. On that route, a mile from the incident scene, was a single 24-hour gas station. It was the only light for miles. Its security cameras were his last, best hope. He spent hours in a dark review room, fast-forwarding through grainy, time-stamped footage. He found the first trip, Chloe's car, pulling past the pumps, not stopping. It was too dark to see the driver. The second trip, the same. But on the third trip, just 2 nights before the incident, the car stopped. It pulled up to a pump. Corbin zoomed in, his pulse quickening. The driver's door opened. The person who stepped out, who looked nervously at the pump, who fumbled with the gas cap, was not Chloe. It was Maya. The passenger door opened. Chloe stepped out, stretching her arms. She looked nervous, rubbing her hands together. She walked over to Maya and appeared to be giving instructions, pointing at the pump. Maya listened, her expression one of intense, focused concentration. Corbin had it. Maya's entire perfect testimony was a lie. She was not the terrified passenger. She was the one in the driver's seat. She was the one practicing. The incident was not a crime of passion. It was a premeditated act. Maya was brought back to the station. This time, she was not a witness. Her parents were not present. A state-appointed advocate sat silently in the corner. Maya looked confused, not scared. She likely believed she was there to sign her statement, the final nail in Chloe's coffin. Corbin sat across from her. He placed a single, printed photograph on the table between them. It was the security footage, time-stamped. Maya at the gas pump, Chloe in the passenger seat. Maya's blood drained from her face. She stared at the picture, her mind comprehending the totality of her error. The practice runs were a problem, Corbin said, his voice cold. It's hard to explain why Chloe would be training you to drive her car with intensity on that specific road, only to take the wheel herself on the final night. So you lied. You said you were the passenger, you said she was driving. You said she found out that night. He slid the second set of printouts onto the table. The screenshots from her secret account. Tonight. We fix everything. And then it will just be us. Maya's composure shattered, not into tears, but into a low animal sound of despair. The game was over. You were driving, Corbin stated. It was not a question. Maya's head snapped up. Her terror was gone, replaced by a sudden, venomous hatred. She was a traitor. She was hurting Chloe. Liam was hurting her. They were a sickness. An infection. They were trying to take her from me. The confession was a deluge. I found the messages, she spat, weeks ago. I saw what they were. Isabella, the saint. She was a liar. And Chloe, she's so soft. She doesn't see. She trusts people who hurt her. I'm the only one who protects her. I've always been the one. So you planned it, Corbin said. I had to. She screamed, leaning forward. I had to save her. I showed Chloe. I showed her the messages. I showed her the proof that Isabella was a liar. That Liam was a liar. I told her they would never stop. That they would destroy us. I told her we had to cut them out, both of them. You plan to end Liam too? Corbin asked. He was next, Maya said, her eyes burning, but Isabella was first. She was the one inside, the one poisoning everything. I came up with the plan, the practice. I told Chloe it was the only way to be sure. To make it look right, she was nervous. But she agreed, she knew it was the only way. Tell me about the pact, Corbin said, his voice flat. He needed the last, darkest details. It was perfect, Maya said, her voice now a conspiratorial whisper, as if she were proud, reliving her logic. I knew Isabella. She was weak. She was guilty. I knew she would confess to Chloe. Liam confirmed it. He said she was going to do it that night. She was smiling. It was the most terrible thing Corbin had ever seen. So we knew, Maya continued. We knew she would be in the car. I told Chloe that Isabella would confess, and that when she did, Chloe should act. Get angry, yell, to make it real. To make Isabella feel it. I would be driving. I would be in control. And Chloe agreed to this. She agreed that Isabella needed to be stopped, Maya said. She was angry. I made her angry. I showed her the messages again and again. I told her how Isabella was laughing at her. How Liam was laughing at her. I fanned the flame. She wanted Isabella gone. She didn't have the strength. I did. I was her strength. Tell me about the final moments, Corbin said. We picked her up. Isabella was so nervous. Just like I knew she would be. Chloe. She did her part. She was cold. She was quiet. And then, Isabella started to cry. She started her confession. Chloe, I'm so sorry, me and Liam. Maya's expression was one of pure, religious ecstasy. And Chloe yelled, Maya said, just like we practiced. You traitor, you liar. It was beautiful. Isabella was crying, begging, and I sped up. Just like we practiced. And the seatbelt? Corbin asked, remembering the mechanics of the scene. Maya's smile faded. She looked down. That was my idea, she whispered. Just before. I told Chloe. If she's really sorry, tell her to prove it. Tell her to unbuckle. Just for a second. To prove she trusts us. Chloe did it. She said, if you trust me, Isa, unbuckle. And Isabella. She was so stupid. So guilty. She did it. She actually did it. And at the last second, Corbin said. At the last second, Maya said. Chloe got scared. She yelled, no. She tried to grab the wheel, but I was stronger. I held it straight. I did it for her. I did it for us. I saved her. Maya's confession painted Chloe as a participant, yes, but a weak-willed, manipulated one. A girl goaded into a plan she tried to stop at the last second, but Corbin remembered Chloe's rage at the arrest. It wasn't the rage of a dupe. It was the rage of a partner whose accomplice had just betrayed her. He was in an interrogation room with Chloe. Her amnesia was gone. Her parents and lawyers were gone. She had waived her right to counsel. She wanted to talk. She told you everything, didn't she? Chloe said. Her voice was flat, cold. She told us her version, Corbin said. She said she was the architect. She said you were her puppet. She said you tried to stop her at the end. Chloe let out a single, sharp laugh. It was a sound with no humor in it. Of course she did. Even now, she thinks she's protecting me. She thinks she's in control. She has no idea, does she? Tell me, Corbin said. The amnesia was my idea, Chloe said, shocking him. It was the only part that was my idea. If we both survived, we would say we didn't remember. It was clean. But Maya, she can't just be quiet. She has to perform. She had to be the terrified victim. She ruined it, just like she ruined everything. You weren't manipulated, Corbin stated. Manipulated. Chloe's eyes flashed. I knew about the affair for 2 months. Long before Maya. Corbin was stunned. You? What? Isabella's text said, she knows. I think she knows. Yes, that was about Maya. Isabella wasn't afraid of me. She was terrified of Maya. Maya had been cornering her, watching her, leaving little notes. Maya was unraveling, and Isabella knew it. But the affair, you weren't angry. Oh, I was angry, Chloe said, her voice dropping. But not for the reason you think. You think I was a normal, jealous girlfriend. That I was furious at losing Liam. She leaned forward. I didn't care about Liam. He was boring. He was easy. I was angry at Isabella, but not because she took him. I was angry because she chose him. Because she looked at him with that stupid, adoring face. The way she was supposed to look at me. The room was silent. Corbin finally understood. The possessiveness, the intensity. It wasn't about the boy and Maya. Chloe continued, a look of profound disgust on her face. Maya was worse. She worshipped me. It was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I was trapped between this obsessive, pathetic creature and this traitor who gave her loyalty to him. So the plan, it was Maya's, yes. The practice runs, the acceleration, it was all her, every detail. She came to me, with her screenshots and her tears, look what they're doing to us. And she laid out her plan. To scare Isabella. And I saw a way out. A way to be free of both of them. You wanted Isabella gone, Corbin said. I wanted peace, Chloe said. I wanted it to be quiet. When Maya suggested the plan, I let her. I helped her. The seatbelt, that was me, not her. I told Isabella to unbuckle. And I didn't say, to prove you trust us. I said, if you ever cared about me at all, you'll do it. And she did. And at the end, Corbin asked, did you try to stop it? Chloe held his gaze. I didn't try to grab the wheel. I let go. I unbuckled my own belt just before the impact. I was lucky, they said, thrown clear. She had been willing to risk it all just to be free. She was not a puppet. She was not a partner. She was a quiet, consenting executioner. The courtroom was a vacuum. All the air had been sucked out of it, replaced by a tense, waiting silence. The trial had been swift. The prosecution had an embarrassment of riches. There was the digital evidence. Isabella's screenshots, Maya's secret social media shrine, the GPS data from the practice runs, and the security footage from the gas station showing Maya at the wheel. And then there were the confessions. 2 separate, detailed confessions, each painting a picture of a toxic, codependent, and ultimately lethal pact. The defense tried. They argued that it was a plan to scare that went horribly wrong. That it was not a deliberate taking of life, but a reckless act. The prosecutor, a sharp woman with a voice that cut, dismissed this in her closing. They practiced, she said, her voice echoing. They practiced acceleration. They practiced on the exact stretch of road. They coerced the victim into unbuckling her safety restraint. This was not a scare. This was an execution, planned for weeks, by 2 people who had appointed themselves judge and jury over a girl whose only crime was a secret. Throughout the trial, Chloe and Maya sat apart, separated by their lawyers. They never looked at each other. They were 2 poles of a broken magnet. Chloe was a statue of ice. She stared at the judge, her expression neutral, almost bored. She listened to the testimonies about her secret feelings, about her cold-hearted consent, and she did not flinch. Maya was a ruin. She wept, silently, from the first day to the last. Her body was a knot of visible misery. She was the broken puppet, her strings cut, collapsed in on herself. Liam had testified, a ghost of the young man he had been. He explained the affair, his guilt, his fear. He looked at both girls, his expression unreadable. The jury was out for only 2 hours. The verdict was read. For Maya, as the driver and primary architect, guilty of the deliberate, unlawful taking of a life. For Chloe, as a willing accomplice who conspired and contributed to the act, guilty of the same. Maya let out a wailing sob. Chloe just closed her eyes. The final day arrived. Sentencing. Isabella's family was given the chance to speak. Her mother stood, clutching the same framed photo Corbin had seen on that first terrible day. She was our light, she said, her voice breaking, but her gaze fixed on the 2 girls. And you took her. You were her friends. You were in our home. You ate at our table. For what? A boy. For some twisted, selfish nothing. There is no sentence long enough. There is no justice that brings her back. We are erased. And you did it. The judge looked at the 2 girls. His words were heavy. This court has heard many stories, he said, his voice grave. But this is a tragedy of a unique and chilling nature. This was not a crime of passion. It was a crime of obsession. It was a crime of calculation. It was a crime of profound, disturbing, and coordinated malice, hidden behind the mask of teenage friendship. He addressed Maya first. You were the hand, he said. You were the one who planned, who practiced, and who held the wheel. You created the weapon and you used it. He delivered her sentence. A long, substantial term of incarceration, measured in multiple decades. Maya collapsed, her body limp, her sobs echoing in the silence. I'm sorry, she whispered, over and over. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The judge then turned to Chloe. And you, he said, his voice dropping, were the heart. The cold heart that allowed it to happen. You gave the consent. You gave the encouragement. You ensured the victim was vulnerable. You, too, are responsible for every second of this act. He delivered her sentence. An equal, long, and substantial term. Chloe's reaction was nothing. She did not cry. She did not speak. She stared at the judge with the same unsettling emptiness she had shown at the very beginning. She just nodded, once, as if accepting a grade on a test. Detective Miles Corbin watched them be led away. Maya, supported by 2 officers, a complete and broken shell. Chloe, walking on her own, her back straight, her gaze fixed forward, already gone. He went back to his desk and closed the file. It was over. The case was solved. But he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he would never truly understand the dark, invisible forces that had converged in that car, on that road. He looked at the evidence bag on his desk, the small silver bracelet still inside. The case was closed, but it would never be finished. Thank you for joining me in this story. The darkness in these characters was a compelling thing to explore. We will meet again.